There are 11 Japanese freezer habits that keep food fresh for months and all but eliminate waste, and once you know them, you stop throwing money in the bin every time you clean out that freezer door. Go and open your freezer right now, and somewhere near the back you will find a bag with no label, no date, and a crust of ice across the top. You do not know when it went in, you are never going to eat it. And you will not throw it out either, because that means admitting you wasted the money, so it just sits there. Japanese households do not have this problem at all, and it is not because they own bigger freezers. It is the exact opposite. Their freezers are a fraction of the size of American ones, with less space and less storage and somehow far less waste, and the food comes out fresher too. And the very last habit on this list, number one, is the one that sounds impossible, an old habit that makes some of your food taste better than the day you bought it. Keep that in mind because I am building you toward it. Here's the thing nobody told you. For about 100 years, the freezer has been sold to you as a place where old food goes to be forgotten, a cold graveyard at the bottom of the fridge. In a Japanese kitchen, it is the opposite. It is the busiest, most useful tool in the house, a place where good food goes to stay good. My grandmother in Japan wasted almost nothing, not because she was poor, though times were hard, but because throwing away food that could have become a meal genuinely pained her. That feeling has a name, and I will give it to you at the end. We did not lose these habits because they failed. We lost them because a full freezer of forgotten bags feels like being prepared, and nobody ever taught us the difference between storing food and hoarding it. My name is Kenji Sato, and for 25 years I worked in professional kitchens and hotels, where wasting food was not a small sin, it was money walking out the back door every single night. In a restaurant, a freezer that turns into a graveyard is a freezer that loses the owner real money. So we ran ours the way I am about to show you, everything labeled, dated, flat, and rotated, and nothing was ever lost in the back. I'm not selling you a gadget because everything here works with the freezer you already own. Now, before we go any further, I have to be honest with you. Only a very small percentage of the people who watch this channel are actually subscribed. If you love good food and you hate the feeling of throwing money in the bin even half as much as I do, then do consider subscribing. It is completely free and you can always change your mind later. It genuinely helps a working man keep making these. Right then, let us count them down, from 11 to 1. Number 11. Number 11 is about when you freeze and how you freeze, and it decides everything that follows. In most American kitchens, freezing is a last resort. The meat goes in only when it is a day from turning, the spinach only when it is already wilting, so by the time you freeze it, you have already lost most of what you were trying to save. A Japanese family does the opposite and freezes on the day they shop, while everything is at its absolute freshest, and they freeze it flat and thin, pressed out in the bag and laid on a metal tray, because metal pulls the heat out fast. Speed is the whole game. When food freezes slowly, the water inside forms big jagged ice crystals that rupture the cell walls from the inside, and when you thaw it, all that moisture drains away and leaves a dry gray texture that makes people swear off frozen food. A thin flat layer freezes through before those crystals can grow, so the texture stays locked in. It stacks flat, and it thaws in minutes, because there is no dense frozen core buried in the middle. So freeze good food the day you buy it, flat and thin on a metal tray. The meat gets trimmed of anything you will not eat and portioned into the exact amounts you cook in one go. So a big pack becomes 4 flat dinner-sized portions instead of one solid brick you have to thaw all at once. That one change fixes half of everything, and once you start thinking this way, freezing becomes the first thing you do with good food instead of the last thing you do with food that is nearly gone. Number 10 is how you store it once it is frozen, and most of us are guilty here. Take an honest look at how your freezer is loaded. It is a pile. A bag of peas on top of a tub of something, a loaf wedged sideways, a slab of meat flat across the bottom holding it all up. If you have to dig through a pile to find anything, you have already lost whatever is underneath because it is condemned to be forgotten. Stacking is how food dies. The Japanese store their bags standing upright, side by side, like files in a drawer, which only works because you flatten everything in the last step. Every bag gets labeled with what it is and the date, grouped into simple zones. Meat with meat, fish with fish, vegetables together. Open the door and you read the whole contents in one glance without moving a thing. You cannot forget something you can see, and that is the heart of this whole video. 3 cheap plastic bins, one for each zone. Turn a pile you dread into a filing cabinet you can read in 2 seconds. A pile is how food goes to die. A row of upright labeled bags is how food gets eaten. Number 9 is the shortest habit on the list, and it is almost embarrassingly simple. Older items always move to the front, and new items always go in behind them. That is the whole rule. When you bring home a fresh bag of something you already have, you do not drop it in the first gap you see. You slide it in behind the older one so the older one gets used first. This keeps your food moving forward instead of settling into layers, and layers are exactly how you ended up with that mystery bag from the start of this video. That bag exists because nothing behind it ever got pulled forward. Rotate front to back and nothing gets the chance to sink to the bottom and turn into an archaeological dig. Number 8 is where the freezer stops just storing food and starts rescuing your evening. The real reason you order takeout on a tired Tuesday is not that you are lazy, and I want you to let yourself off the hook on that. It is that at 6 o'clock, tired and hungry, you are standing in front of an empty cutting board and a pile of raw vegetables that all need washing, peeling, and chopping before anything even starts to cook, and ordering food is one tap away. The cutting board is the thing that beats you, not the cooking. So the Japanese solution is to do all the chopping once in a single calm session when you have the energy and freeze the results ready to go. The onions diced, the green onions sliced, the ginger grated, the carrots cut, all portioned and frozen flat so you grab exactly the handful you need. Some vegetables like spinach hold their color better if you blanch them quickly first, so fold that in where it helps. When 6 o'clock comes, the hardest part of dinner is already done, and you reach past the takeout menu for a handful of prep vegetables and go straight to the hot pan. You were never really competing with the restaurant on flavor or price. You were competing with the cutting board, and now the cutting board is already lost before you even walked into the kitchen. Number 7 turns the freezer into something that actually prepares your food for you. When you season your meat before it goes in, the time it spends frozen stops being empty waiting time and starts doing real work. You put the chicken or the pork into the bag already sitting in miso, or in shio-koji, or in a simple mix of soy and mirin, and freeze the whole thing together. As it slowly freezes and later slowly thaws, that freeze and thaw cycle drives the marinade deep into the meat, so it comes out more evenly seasoned than if you had marinated it fresh that same morning and rushed it. The result is that you do not pull out plain raw chicken on a Tuesday and stand there wondering what to do with it. You pull out a fully seasoned piece of meat that only needs a hot pan to become dinner. The freezing time you used to think of as dead time was actually the marinade doing its slow, patient work, and all you changed was the order you did things in. Number 6 is the simplest habit of the whole set. When you cook a batch of any grain or starchy staple, cook far more than you need and freeze the extra in single serving portions. Rice is the obvious one, but it works just as well for noodles, cooked barley, mashed potato, anything you make a whole pot of at once. You freeze them flat in individual portions, and on a busy night you reheat exactly one straight from frozen. You do the work once and eat from it 5 separate times, and the freezer holds the difference for you. This is the habit that turns one Sunday afternoon into 5 easy weeknights without you thinking about it again. A pot of rice you cook once feeds you all week, and you never once stand over the stove on a tired evening waiting for it. Everything up to now has been about losing less of what you already have. Everything from here starts making the freezer actively work in your favor. Number 5 is where paying attention to grocery prices finally starts paying you back. Seasonal produce hits one sweet spot where it is both cheaper and better at the exact same moment, and that window is painfully short. Berries in high summer, corn at its peak, mushrooms in autumn, fish when they are running, all at their lowest price and their highest quality for just a few weeks a year. If you buy them right at that peak and freeze the surplus straight away, flat and fast, the way you already learned, you get to eat July produce in the middle of January, at July prices, instead of the sad expensive out-of-season version shipped halfway around the world. You are not just saving a little on what you already buy, you are buying the very best version of it at the cheapest possible moment and locking that quality in for months. The grocery store sells you the same strawberry in January for 3 times the price and half the flavor, shipped from the other side of the world, because they are counting on you forgetting that summer already handed you the better one for less, so do not forget. Buy it at its peak, freeze the extra, and eat the good version all winter long. Number 4 is the one almost everyone ruins in the final 60 seconds on the way back out, which is thawing. The Japanese treat thawing as a proper technique with its own name, kaito, not an afterthought you rush at the last second. The default method is the slowest, and it is also the best, which is simply moving tomorrow's food from the freezer down to the fridge tonight and letting it thaw gently overnight while you sleep. When you need it faster, seal the bag well and sit it in a bowl of cold water, which thaws food quickly without ever letting it drift into a warm, unsafe temperature. And the surprising part is that plenty of things should not be thawed at all. Frozen vegetables go straight into the hot pan or the soup while still solid, and thin sliced meat goes straight into a hot skillet from the freezer. Whatever you do, do not thaw food out on the counter at room temperature, because it is both the worst choice for the texture and the only one that is genuinely unsafe, and it is the one most of us reach for without a second thought. Number 3 is a single idea that changes what a freezer is even for. Your freezer stores the past, theirs stores the future. Think about what actually lives in a typical American freezer right now. Leftovers, half a lasagna from last week, the end of a chili you already ate 3 times, a takeout container you meant to finish. It is all food you have already made and already grown a little tired of. A Japanese freezer is full of beginnings instead. Dashi stock ready to become soup, a base of curry waiting to be finished, portions of pasta sauce, trays of gyoza ready to pan fry, seasoned patties ready to cook from cold. None of that is a leftover. Every piece of it is a component, a head start on a meal that has not happened yet. When the freezer is full of the past, opening it is a small guilt trip, a reminder of things you meant to eat and did not. When it is full of the future, opening it is the opposite, because everything in there is a promise of an easy dinner rather than the ghost of an old one. Cooking stops being starting from nothing and becomes assembling from a head start. So stop storing meals you have grown bored of and start storing meals you have not even made yet. Number 2 sounds like the opposite of everything I have just told you, and that is exactly the point. Never freeze more than you will actually eat. The goal was never to cram in as much food as humanly possible. The goal is that everything you buy actually gets eaten. A freezer packed to the door with forgotten food is not organized at all. It is waste wearing the costume of preparation, hidden behind a door you never open all the way. Every habit on this list is really about designing to get food back out of the freezer and onto a plate, not just getting it in. so keep it loose enough that you can see every single thing in it. An empty shelf in your freezer is not a failure. It means everything in there is going to be eaten. And now the one I promised you at the start. Number one is the habit that flips your expectations completely on their head because it is not about losing less. It is about the freezer making food genuinely better than it ever was fresh. Some foods do not just survive being frozen, they actively improve because of it. Mushrooms are the headline. Fresh mushrooms are mild and a little watery, but when you freeze them, the ice crystals rupture their cell walls, and that same damage that would ruin a steak triggers an enzyme reaction inside the mushroom that produces a compound called guanylate, which is one of the main natural sources of savory umami flavor. In plain terms, frozen mushrooms taste stronger and richer than the fresh ones you started with. This is exactly why frozen and dried shiitake are so prized in Japanese cooking. And the Umami Information Center confirms that fresh mushrooms hold almost none of that compound until the cell walls break down and release it. Tofu does something similar with its texture. Freeze fresh tofu and thaw it, and the water inside forms ice crystals that push the protein apart into a sponge. When it drains, you are left with a chewy, absorbent tofu full of tiny holes that drinks up whatever broth you cook it in. America's Test Kitchen tested this exact method and found the frozen version soaked up sauce far better and took on an almost meaty bite that fresh tofu simply cannot match. The Japanese built a whole traditional ingredient out of this, called koya tofu, freeze-dried tofu, part of temple cooking for centuries. So the freezer here is not a compromise you settle for, it is a tool that makes some ingredients better than the day you bought them. That is number one, and it is the reason a Japanese cook opens the freezer with a plan, not a sigh. Whatever you do, do not think of your freezer as the place where food goes to be forgotten, because handled right, it is the place where some of your food gets better. Now let me pull all the way back, because there is a Japanese word that ties this whole video together, and it is nai. It does not simply mean do not be wasteful, and it is not a scolding. It runs deeper. It is the genuine regret you feel when something good never got the chance to become what it could have been, the sense that a thing had a real purpose and was never once allowed to fulfill it. It treats the wasted potential itself as the loss, not just the money. When you throw away that frozen bag you never opened, maranai is the feeling of the meal it was supposed to become, the money it stood for, and the care of everyone who grew it and caught it and carried it to your store, all going into the bin together in one motion. You already felt that the exact second you found the bag at the start of this video. You just did not have a word to hang it on, and now you do. You're not knowing this was never on you. The freezer was sold to you as a place to forget, and you used it the way it was sold. But food you buy with care and freeze with a little thought is not a chore. It is you looking after the people at your table before they are even hungry, which is about the oldest and kindest thing a kitchen can do. You do not need to try all 11 of these this weekend, and I would honestly rather you did not, because turning your whole kitchen into one giant Saturday project is exactly the trap this whole approach is built to avoid. Start with 1. Freeze something flat on the same day you buy it, or stand your bags upright so you can finally see every one of them, and just notice how it slowly changes what ends up in your bin at the end of the month. Your freezer was never too small, and your willpower was never really the problem. It just needed a system where forgetting is not one of the options anymore. So do me a favor and tell me 2 things down in the comments. Tell me which one of these 11 habits you are going to try first, and tell me what you found lurking in the back of your freezer when you actually went and looked, because I read as many as I can and the patterns never stop teaching me. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Do it once, do it properly, and then it stays done. And subscribe before you go, because next time I am going to open the refrigerator door and show you the 5 things you are storing in exactly the wrong spot, including the one shelf that is ruining your milk days before the date printed on the carton, and it is the shelf almost everyone reaches for first.